Hello and welcome to another episode of Protest and Promise. My name is Lisa Salazar and I am the General Manager of the Youth Development Department. Each month we engage members of the LA City Youth Council, which is represented by all 15 council districts on very important topics and themes relative to youth interests. And today we're joined by members of the Youth Council, and I'd like to take a moment and allow them to introduce themselves. So let's start with Ava. Ava, please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Ava and I represent Council District 2.
All right, welcome. And next is Nadaline.
Hi everyone, my name is Nadaline. I represent District 1.
District 1 in the house, all right. Right on. How about Daniela, you're next.
Hi, I'm Daniela and I represent Council District 15.
Okay, and Luke.
Hi, I'm Luke and I represent Council District 11.
All right, well, welcome to our LA City Youth Council members. Thank you for being here. And they expressed an interest in meeting our new controller, Controller Kenneth Mejia, who is in studio with us here today. So, Controller, welcome and congratulations on your election. The Youth Council is very excited to meet you today and dialogue and ask questions and learn more about your job. So, if you wouldn't mind taking a minute telling us a little bit about yourself and the roles and responsibilities of the Office of the Controller.
So thank you, Lisa. Hello, everyone in the Youth Council. Glad to be here. I still consider myself a youth.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone says I look like a youth, so I'm going to say I'm one of y'all.
You're going to own it.
Right. So, I grew up in Silmar,
Okay.
in the San Fernando Valley, born and raised, single mother. She taught me a lot about hard work and education and study hard. And then when you finish your work, go out and do whatever you want.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what I did. I graduated college in 2.5 years, bachelor's in accounting, got my CPA.
Wait, you completed college in 2.5 years?
Yes. And the secret is you do all your electives and all your easy classes at a community college for free, or you pay like $20 when it was $20 a unit. And I was able to finish everything in 2.5 years. And so after that, I did accounting, worked at the Big Four as an auditor. Mm-hmm. And then organizing-wise, I organized around issues like homelessness and housing. And then that's why I wanted to run for city controller, because it's the city's accountant and the auditor. Not a lot of people know about that. People only usually know about mayor or city council. Right. But the controller is the accountant. We're making sure that all the money is accounted for. It's being spent correctly in accordance with the budget. We're also the city's auditor to make sure that we're doing performance audits and financial audits to make sure that our tax dollars are being spent efficiently and effectively. And we're also the city's paymaster, making sure that everything gets paid to city employees and to city vendors. That's just a small taste of it, but we do a lot more. And
just to scale that, you said you're the accountant for all of the city money.
Right.
What is all the money?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much all
like
the entire
billions
city,
of dollars?
Yeah, billions of dollars. So just for our city alone, not including, the airport, the DWP, or the ports, but the city alone here, we have about a $12 billion budget that we oversee each fiscal year, each year. So that's our role, is to look over those funds, making sure it's not spent recklessly and we're safeguarding it.
Because it's taxpayers' money.
It's taxpayers' money. It's everyone's money. It's your money.
Right. Wow, that is a huge job. And you said paymaster, meaning your office is responsible for paying all the city employees, and we have something like
over 40,000.
Over 40,000 employees. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's amazing. So I'm so glad that you mentioned the community colleges, because with the LA College Promise, young people in the city can go to school, like if they're first-time, full-time students, for free.
Right.
So as low cost as it was, now it's for free, and I mean that's great. To like start there, get those general ed classes out of the way, and then transfer and just knock it out. That's fantastic. Well, thank you for being here, and I know that our youth council members have prepared some questions for you and want to learn even more about your work. And yeah, who wants to kick it off? Maybe Ava?
I can start us off. I was just wondering, the Youth Development Department is currently developing a financial literacy curriculum to kind of help youth understand money management in total and build skills in it. How could your office support these efforts?
So when we were running for office, and by the way, great question, Eva, we always incorporated Zoom sessions or in-person sessions on teaching financial literacy, whether that was how to file your taxes, how to use the city's controller website, because we account for all dollars spent. And people are like, how do we use this website? So I used to teach people. And so what we want to do is carry that through in city government, actually here now. So I'd love to partner up. We did it mostly for adults, for unhoused people who needed to file taxes. But any way I could teach or educate, especially the youth, to become more, to empower them financially, especially as they get older, because they don't teach you this stuff in college or in high school. And when you graduate, you're sort of just thrown out there in the world, right? So, my door is always open. We want to do education classes on finances. So let's make it happen.
That's great. And it sounds like you already have some tools that we can utilize.
Right.
And in recent conversation with young people, right now they're very interested in how to file taxes. So like first-time job, looking at paychecks, understanding their paychecks, and then now realizing that they have to file taxes. So how do you do that? And do you have to pay all kinds of money to a tax preparer? Is it something that you could do on your own? So.
Right.
That's great. Great question, and most definitely want to partner. Who'd like to go next?
I can go next.
All right, Daniela.
My question is, how can the city address and mitigate the impact of financial disparities on youth in our city?
That's a great question. I mean, I think, well, first of all, the development of the Youth Development Department is one way to start. A lot of departments touch youth, but there was never really one centralized organization or department that actually helped and focused on youth. So that's one way, because then the Youth Development Department can tell us, what are some of those disparities? Where are certain groups or certain districts or neighborhoods that are not getting the resources they need, whether it's financially or physically. And as the city controller, we can spotlight that, and we can expose it, and we can provide recommendations. So one of the best things we could do as the controller is getting access to information and then making that information known to the public. And when the public gets that, everyone's like, whoa, I had no idea. I didn't know it was this bad. I didn't know the youth in South Central were getting neglected like this, or they didn't get resources, or they have no trees. And then pretty much from there, it opens the eyes of legislators, which is the city council, which is the mayor. And so that's sort of how we view our power as controller, and to help with these sort of these disparities is make it known, and then provide recommendations, and then hopefully you all, the public, and then the council members actually take what we found out and actually address those inequities and disparities.
That's really great, because using data like that and pinpointing those specific communities where there's gaps in services, we can work together to just strategically, surgically infuse those areas that are missing out, and create greater access and equity to all young people, so that we don't say things like, wow, I didn't know young people in South LA were not benefiting from this resource that the city is funding currently. Exactly. So using data, partnering, working together, that's really great. All right, who has a question? Luke.
Yes, it's kind of a follow-up to the previous question, but I wanted to ask, in general, can you discuss any challenges or barriers that youth in particular in our city may face in accessing financial services and resources, and how your office is working to address them?
Great question, Luke. I think one of the big issues is a lot of city resources are not easily made known or available. So just even knowing something exists is a huge issue. And considering if you're in a neighborhood or you're in a family that doesn't have access to internet or technology, that could be even more difficult, right? So I say that's the first issue is first, how do people find out about it? Because there are a lot of resources that the city offers. And then I guess as controller, we want to figure out what are those, and then what is the city doing to make it known, right? Is it only posted on social media? Are they doing, phone calls, phone banks, mass texts? Are they putting up, are there canvassers knocking on doors letting people know of these resources? I know for us, we like to put up billboards everywhere about city information. And I think that's then what we'd like to do to push the city and say, hey, only you're offering a lot of money here for people who make less than this income to get, whether it's food or basic income or some sort of resource. You need to make it more known and let us help you. So I think that's what we can do as a city controller is first find out, and that's what we're doing. We're going to reach out to all 46 departments, figure out what resources they offer to the community, whether it's financial education or resources, and then say, how do we make that more publicly available and accessible, especially different languages, and considering people's income needs and if they have the technology or not.
Yeah, that's really great. I mean, that is part of what we're trying to do right now is identify where there's duplication of service and then identifying those and elevating like the best practices there and sharing resources so that we could do it. But you're right. A lot of folks don't know about all of the different programs and services that the city provides. And that's terrible. It should not be like the best kept secret. Everybody should have, knowledge about what the city offers. So great question, Luke. Thank you for that. Nadalyn, you have a question.
I do have a question. How does the Controller's Office plan to keep the Energy, Climate Change, Environmental Justice, and River Committee accountable in using the $800 million bid proposal for shifting to a green hydrogen from a natural gas plant?
Wow, very specific question. I personally probably need to do more on this specific question on hydrogen and natural gas, but I know for us, and just talking about environmental justice in general, I mean, we want to spotlight what is the city doing to address climate change, and whether that's moving away from from fossil fuels to renewable energy. We want to spotlight that and show that, right? I think right now, the mayor a few years ago passed the Green New Deal, and it included all these great proposals, and then there are these milestones, but a lot of people sort of forgot about what happened to it. And I think as a controller, like I said, whether it's any issues, we want to spotlight, well, okay, where are we right now on the status of moving towards 100% clean renewable energy? What does that look like? What's lagging? And how do we make that information known? I think one of the big issues just in government in general is no one knows what's happening. And that's sort of what my job is. So in terms of the environmental justice, and just recently too, we did a youth meeting with environmental justice activists just to get their take and see how the controller can play a role in sort of the oversight sector, right? And that's sort of how we're gonna try to push change, especially related to the environment. And I think at the environment, we're centering a lot of the youth, and especially a lot of the neighborhoods that are impacted mostly by fossil fuels.
I really appreciate that you are creating spaces to have meaningful engagement with young people and hearing their perspective.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of community members, especially youth, who live in areas where there are literally oil wells in their backyard, or and they just want to figure out what is the city doing in terms of legislation, in terms of setbacks, how are we trying to get away from this type of environment, literally.
Yeah.
And, people just, I think they're also fed up too that the disparities of environmental injustice is happening, especially in low-income neighborhoods, communities of color where English is not a second language. And, they always, they feel that there's definitely an injustice there. And they're also, they also made connections about transportation as well, because we're so heavily dependent on cars and how it's expensive. And but if we actually move towards trains and buses, that could also help too. So it was just a whole array of issues at the time.
Transportation, safe pathways, and transportation is actually one of the policy areas that our youth council elevated in their budget value statement. So in the youth development department's budget, they all put a statement together and outlined 4 priorities, and transportation was one of them. So, I mean, it makes all the sense in the world, and just like super appreciate you creating those spaces to dialogue with young people, because they make up nearly a quarter of the population here in the city. All right, I think we have probably a second round of questions, right? Ava is nodding her head. Why don't you go ahead?
How can your data story maps reflect youth issues, interests, and voices that can help support like future policy recommendations, for instance?
Great question. I think whenever the city controller or our office releases information or data, especially in a way that's objective, because the numbers don't lie, right? They speak for itself. That's why sometimes I don't get involved in the name calling as much. I just say, here's the numbers. Like, I'm not going to say anything. But because of that information, sometimes the data tools we present could be so powerful, it could actually change votes. People can be like, I saw the controller's report, and I saw that we weren't spending the money wisely here, and it resulted in fatalities, or it resulted in, you know, more money being spent and no results being shown. So I'm going to vote no on this, you know. So that's sort of what we saw in the campaign too. When we ran for office, is we put out maps of proposed legislation, you know, on homelessness, around affordable housing, on park space, park inequities, and people in council would look at our maps and would then either advocate for, you know, in their district for more affordable housing, or they would pass on information to their constituents who had questions, or whether how to tackle homelessness using our resources, right? And so I think that's sort of how we can be very effective, is, like I said earlier, is releasing these data, these tools, these stories that paint a picture, right? Whether that's affecting the youth or any other issue or group, is how powerful we can be. And I think, like, the greatest benefit of the controller is I can ask for anything, and what took me like months before to get it, I get
information and data.
I can get it really quickly now, right? And that information should be made known. So that's how those data story maps could be a powerful tool.
That's really great, because educating the public and having tools available on your website that are easy. You know, this is like complex stuff, but you're able to translate it into like digestible, understandable, you know, by folks who are not accountants, on how the city is investing and spending, and sort of the results of that. That's really great. We did an earlier episode on voter registration, and a couple of our youth council members expressed that part of their hesitation for voting is because they don't want to vote for the wrong thing, because they don't feel like they have enough information. So knowing that there's information on your website, and there will continue to be this effort to, you know, of transparency and educating folks, we can most definitely share that with the youth council, and they can share with their peers to say, hey, you want to know about this ballot measure? The controller has information related to this. Go to this website. So that's fantastic.
And I think just a point to that, you know, my goal is at the end of this term or whenever, is to essentially not have you all rely on the controller to release the information. I want the departments and the city to already have it readily available in a way that's accessible, it's easy to understand, so that you don't have to reach out to me anymore. It's like, oh, I know where to go now. The controller told, you know, got the department to put it up on their website. So it doesn't just go away
with you. It's like
it's like we're trying
to
create
a foundation.
Right, we're trying to go for a system change, not just so, okay, let's ask the controller to ask them, and then get it from the controller. It's like, why don't we just make that known already? And if it's, what's the issue? Is there any barriers? Is the data bad? Is it hard to understand? And that's what we want to figure out, is how do we systemically change information, you know, dissemination to the public. And that's what we're hoping to do.
That's a great, you know, vision and goal for the future. Love that. Thank you so much. Great question. Who has another question?
I recall during your campaign you had, and as you mentioned, you had billboards up around the city presenting this information, and one in particular compared the budget allocated for youth. And so I was curious as to how you would hope to see that change during your time as city controller.
You know, when we were very intentional when we put up which departments to highlight. We picked the department that took the most money from the budget, which is the police, and we picked the department that got the least, which was youth development. And in the middle, we also put housing, but still, housing was still small. You know, housing was only around 200 million, and police is 3.1 billion, and youth is like zero, like the tiniest. And I think when people understand where the city's budget priorities are, that's what it said on the billboard, they can then become more engaged with government. And when you see something like that, you know, we're not name calling, we're not saying anything bad about any of these departments. We're just saying, hey, this is where the money's going, these are our priorities. Then they'll start to question and get more involved, right? And I think that's what we saw during the election, is we saw a lot of youth, a lot of people saying, oh, I had no idea we spent, I didn't even know we had a department for youth. I didn't even know they even made money. And what that did was, and what I hoped it did is that I hoped it helped the youth development department or the housing department one way or another, right? But, you know, that's sort of the goal, is to present data, just, hey, this is what it is. Like, I don't need to tell you anything. You know, this is, if you need to know why youth are underinvested in politics, if you want to know why government is underinvested in youth, well, take a look at where the money is, right? Budgets are moral documents. That's what I tell people. And there's a saying, if you want to show me what you truly value, show me your budget, right? Because we could always say, I care about the youth. I care about housing. And then, all right, let's see what we're going to spend on the youth, right? And it's like, oh, we're going to spend 5 million, 6 million, 8 million. And then they ask, well, what's the total budget? Oh, 12 billion. And you're like, what? That's what you got to ask. These are the questions. It's like, if you truly value it, well, show me your money. And that's sort of what the approach we're taking. So,
the money tells the story.
Right.
All right, great question. Thank you, Daniela. Luke, do you have another question? All right.
Sure. I guess to follow up on that, are there any other ideas or methods that your office is pursuing or wants to pursue in the future to allow young people to feel more involved in the process, or to educate them, or even just involve them a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, just our campaign was was filled with high school students, college students. Our executive office includes someone who just graduated high school, and he dropped out of college right now to be here with us. He made our websites. He's the one who made all the maps. His name is Kyler. He just turned 19, and he's part of our team. And that's how we sort of want to empower people, right? The other ways too we want to empower people is when we start doing these community meetings in general, we invite the youth to talk about the issues that they care about, right? And that also shapes too our audits more literally. So we want to come up with participatory auditing. Like, what do you all want us to look into, right? What do you want us to investigate, or what do you want transparency on the most, whether it's financial or performance? And that's how we get the youth involved. So we're going to do community meetings, so be on the lookout for that, either on Zoom. We're also visiting all 15 city council districts to do these meetings. And we also have meetings specifically with the youth to tell their story, because you all are inheriting this world. So,
absolutely. Oh my gosh. Do we have another question, maybe?
Sure, I have a question. You mentioned just recently right now also that you're planning on having more sessions. Like recently you had your environmental activist session. And I heard you also say that you're planning on holding more. Do you have any on hand right now? What types of sessions you're planning on doing?
So they're more of they're community listening sessions. So hearing what the community wants to see from their city government. Although we can't bring change via policy, which is what city council and the mayor does, but as the watchdog, as the auditor, as the controller, we can spotlight, well, these are what the community, these are the issues that they're experiencing. And this is the response the government's giving them. And it's whether they're getting no response, they're getting no resources. And that's what we want to find out. You know, we're sort of a facilitator as the controller a bit. You know, find out what's wrong, see as the watchdog, as the controller, as the person in charge of oversight, what is the city doing to make, you know, these community members feel heard? You know, and maybe the answer is they're not. But at least that's an answer, right? I think one of the biggest things is the public will send a question or the email city and they never get a response. Right. And I think for us, no response is even bad, but at least telling them why there's no response or why it's taking so long is what we want to do. And so we're sort of taking that task on. And I think it's very, very something that's never been done before as a controller, because everyone only literally looks at us as an accountant or an auditor or someone who pays people. But we're really trying to change things systemically through oversight, right? And that includes not just saying what I want to do, but it also includes getting the community's input. So every audit that we do is intentional. It's something that the community wanted. So when we do release our audits, I want everyone to know it's not what I wanted to do. It's what these impacted communities wanted. And
driven by the people.
Exactly, governed by the people. So when we, like I said, participatory audits or suggestions is always welcome. So we'll let you know. You can follow us on Instagram or social media, and we always post when we're going to do our next event.
That's amazing. I've never even heard that term, participatory auditing.
Yeah, you only hear participatory budgeting.
Yeah.
But now it's like, whoa, participatory audits, because no one knew what the city controller was. And I think we sort of broke that. And now everyone knows what the city controller is. It's like the coolest position now.
It's a very different mindset. I mean, you think controller, you think audit, and you know, people want to talk to auditors. Auditor just means like, oh no, like no auditor.
Yeah.
But you're just completely flipping that on its side and saying, no, it's participatory. And we're going to go right into the community and hear directly from folks about what their concerns are and what they think we should be looking at. That is amazing. That is amazing. So I think we are near time. Any final thoughts?
I just want to say thank you to the Youth Council for being here. I mean, you all literally, you know, you guys are the future, and I think you have a lot of power, right? If you feel like there's nothing changing or you don't see any organizations or movements around issues that are important to you, you know, find a couple of friends and start that movement, start that organization, and realize you do have power. It can feel so small sometimes when you're up against a giant system, right? Yeah. But you'll be heard, and you know, that's what. When we started off like this, we were just all like you. No one really cared about us, and we ended up putting on a show, giving the people what they wanted, transparency, numbers, and really listening to the community and what they wanted. And you know, we ended up receiving the most votes in the entire history of the city of LA. So you know, don't give up, keep fighting, and you know, I'm here to help.
Fantastic. Controller Mejia, thank you for being here today. Great discussion. Our young people are inspired, and we're really looking forward to partnering with you and a very bright future. Thank you again for joining us today on another episode of Protest and Promise. I'm your host, Lisa Salazar.